A couple of times in my life, I've done things that I said I'll never do that again. Then I went and did it again. One of those things was something called Paleface Pass, which is a part of the Trans-Canada Trail, and in fact, the most difficult part of the Trans-Canada Trail, in my opinion. And the first time I did it, it took me all day to go 8 kilometers up this rocky, crazy trail. And when I got to the other side, I was proud of accomplishing it and getting over, but I said I'd never do that again. And then, of course, a few years later, I forgot about it. Well, you don't really forget about it. You just kind of remember the good parts of it. And so I did Paleface Pass a second time. I did it the other way. And man, even the other way, it's still no joke. This is a pass that goes from Hope to Chilliwack over the mountains. And it's basically an old road and a hiking trail and a bunch of switchbacks and some black flies and jagged rocks. It's crazy. But I did it again. When I finished doing the making of the Global Heart Championship belt, I said, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore because it was overwhelming to me. And I didn't think I was gonna at the time. And then I made my next art project. I made Round Rockville. This is epoxy resin, broken glass, and rocks. There's the back. And I really enjoy this. This is a wonderful piece of art, and it's inspired me to start writing. And I wish I would have done a making of for this piece of art. Even though I said I was going to stop doing the FWP Art Department Making of, I'm bringing it back. And I'm bringing it back because it's just a good part of the art. I mean, it's the whole thing together, the making of and the art pieces that I make, they go together really well, and it gives me something to do. And this latest one is a really neat project. I was inspired by an address. And actually, I don't know who lives there. I don't know anything about them, but I do know the address of their home. And out front, they have, well, I'll save it. I don't want to have a spoiler, but I'll show you in the final video when I give them the address sign that I made them. So this was my latest art project, and I'm going to give you a making of, and stay tuned, and you can see how I made that and what I'm going to do with it. We'll see you in that. As I've mentioned before, I enjoy walking the beach, but I don't just walk the beach. I clean up garbage. I pick up broken glass, rocks, and driftwood to use for art supplies. One of my favorite things to find and pick up is a large flat piece of wood like this one. These pieces of driftwood make excellent signs, and I really enjoy painting those signs. In this case, I've decided to make a stencil. So I brought out my cutting board so I can stencil 4 consistent number 1s. I was also thinking of painting both sides of the driftwood with the address that I'm going to put on it. And a stencil would allow me to do that consistently on both sides. But in the end, I decided that one side was just enough. I mean, people are only going to look at one side of it anyways, so. And then what I do is, after I've put the ones using the stencil, I'm writing out the address, which is, or the street, which in this case is an avenue, Brookside Avenue. As I mentioned in the intro, I was inspired by an address, and these driftwood pieces make excellent address signs. I have one in front of my home as well, and this is something that I really enjoy doing and might continue doing on demand. So if you want an address sign, you can send me your address, and I can put it onto a piece of driftwood for you. As you can see here, I'm just cutting out the numbers and letters that will make the stencil so I can paint the address onto the driftwood. This is meticulous and time-consuming work. I've sped it up a little bit so that we can move past it and get to the end where I now have a stencil ready to put back onto the driftwood. The other good thing about using a stencil is I know it's going to fit onto the piece of wood. If I hand paint it, I have to be careful not to make a letter too large or too small. So the stencil just allows me to be able to draw everything out before I finalize it in paint, which I'm doing here in white. I use a couple of thick coats of acrylic paint, and that should hold up against a little bit of weather. Eventually it will wear out. It's not permanent, but it is fairly durable. Now with the stencil removed, you can see that the 4 ones have come out fairly consistent. I mean, I am not a precision artist. I am a raw creative artist with blunt talent. But that suits me just fine. So I'm outlining the letters here, and that just the black outline will make the white letters stand out a little bit more, and that will be the finished product. I'm happy with the way it turned out. Using a stencil gives you a nice clean letters, and the outline just finishes it off and makes everything stand out well. Now I've moved on to the back and I'm just signing it. My signature is whatever, and of course Trevor is my name, and then finally I'll put my initials, which are T-A-H, but the way I draw them, it can also be interpreted as a TNT, and that is the mark that I put on all of my art. I don't always use my full signature on my art. Usually I just put my initials, but in this case I wanted to sign it with whatever Trevor, because I don't know the people I'm giving it to, and I'm not going to tell them, so I wanted them a little hint as to who made their address sign. And finally, I use a couple of thick coats of high gloss clear coat. Yeah, it's looking good. And this will help to seal the wood, and it's also UV protection, so it will protect the paint from the sun, which does deteriorate acrylic paint a little bit. So this will just simply help that deterioration to slow down, and it'll allow the sign to last longer. And of course a couple of coats on the back, just to the driftwood is actually quite fragile. It's starting to crack and stuff, so what this will do is just seal it up for the weather, and it'll hold together a little bit longer. I mean, it is just a fun gift for somebody I don't know, but it is a beautiful piece of driftwood, so I do want it to last a little while, and I hope they enjoy their new address sign. This was the inspiration for my latest art project. The address 1111 Brookside Avenue. And they have 1, 2, 3 1111 signs. So I built them a 4th one. The only sensible thing for an obsessive compulsive to do is to make a 4th 1111 address sign. So that's what I did with a nice piece of driftwood. And there we go. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Have a good day. We'll see you in that ring. Thank you for watching the FWP Art Department making of 1111 Brookside Avenue.